This week we look at a bunch of the utilities that Linux has to offer. We spent time last week covering paths, both absolute and relative, so that we can use them with the utilities this week. In addition to utilities, we will learn how to use the pipe this week to make our utilities much more powerful. To start this week's demo off, I'm going to use a little shell script to create some directory structure to work with. Let's take a look at that file. The first line tells the script to run under the bash shell. Then each line below is just a shell command. It makes a web directory, then several subdirectories in web, then changes directory into web images. Note the relative paths being used. Now it creates the year directories in web images, then changes directory again using a relative path and goes into the CSS directory. It creates a few empty CSS files, then a subdirectory called side, then something we haven't learned yet, the use of the curly braces that fills a list of values inside the curly braces to create a whole bunch of files, in this case 10 files. The last line uses the wget utility to download an image from the internet and save it using a specific name. Now we execute the script so it will create the structure inside the current working directory. Create it by executing the file, // and then the file name, create_dir_structure.sh. Afterwards, I run ls to verify the web directory got created. Now we will practice running our commands using relative paths without changing directories. Just to review the created directory structure, I'll run tree on the web directory so we can have a reference. Run tree space web. Now let's make a copy of the images directory and place it in views. Run cp-r on the source directory web/images, then the destination directory web/views. And notice that we use the -r option to make the copy recursive. Make sure to pay attention to the use of relative paths. Now we will delete the copied directory because we don't really need two copies of it. Run rm-r so we can get recursive and get everything inside on web views images. Now I'll use wget to get a sample crime data file from the internet and save it as web/crimedata.csv. To do so, I run wget with the -O option so I can save it as a specific file name, and then I enter the URL where the file is coming from. Use the file utility to examine the file information. Again, we use a relative path to specify the file. Run file web/crimedata.csv, indicating that the web directory is inside our working directory, and the crimedata.csv file is inside web. Now let's use less to take a peek at the file. We just want to get an idea of what it looks like, so when we search through it in the next step with grep, we'll have an idea of what we are looking at. Now use the grep utility to search for homicide in the file and see what we get. Note that grep is case sensitive, so we may want to use the -i option to make the search not case sensitive. And I always like to use the -n option to show the line number in the file that the match comes from. Now rerun it again with grep-in homicide. The search parameter comes first, then the path of the file, web/crime.csv. This time we see that there are a lot of results, so many in fact that they ran off the screen and are hard to view. We can solve that problem using a pipe to send the output from the grep search to another utility as input. In this case, I would like to use the pager, the less paging utility, to view the results. So I'll run grep-in homicide on the web crime CSV file, and I'll pipe that using that vertical lines, the pipe character, to the less utility. And the results will be sent to less paging utility for viewing. When open, they look like this, and we can scroll back and forth, and just like normal with the less paging utility, press Q to quit. You can use the pipe to send output from one utility to input of another. Here I'll send the output of one grep search to the input of another grep search, and then finally to less. In this example, I'm using grep to look through an input, not a file, so I don't give it a file name, but I do need to specify any options that I want to apply to this command. The options from the first search don't apply here because we are running a different instance of the grep search. Take a look at the results of this command. Here I'm running grep-in on the search homicide in the file web/crimedata.csv, sending the results through a pipe to grep, again insensitive case search for Figueroa, so I can find all of the homicides on Figueroa Street, and then I'm sending those results to less. Now let's look at the toDOS utility. Many times in system administration, you'll have to deal with files from different operating systems. And those files typically have different end-of-line sequences. Those are characters that tell where a line ends. In Windows, that is usually a \r\n, also known as a carriage return line feed. And in Unix, it is usually a \n. But these are usually hidden characters, making it difficult to tell the format. Using VI will tell you when a file is in a DOS or Windows format, but there's a utility that can convert them. The toDOS utility converts a file from Unix \n end-of-line sequence to a DOS or Windows \r\n end-of-line format. Make a copy of the crimedata.csv file and call it crimedos.csv in the same directory. Then run toDOS on it to convert the file. Now open the new file in VI and see the indication down at the bottom that it is in DOS format. Open the original file and see that it is not. Now let's look at a command that usually gives people trouble. The tar command is used to take a bunch of things and roll them up into one file, making them easy to transport and work with. These files are known as tar archives and usually have a .tar file extension. The archives are also commonly compressed using gzip compression, then typically given the file name or file extension .tar.gz. The place that gets tricky is that the common option to create a file as the output of the tar command requires input. The input is the name of the tar file you are creating. This looks strange at first because new users are not used to an option having a file name as input, and it throws them off. Let's look at an example. tar-czf, C being create, Z being use gzip to compress, and then F being file, followed by the name of the file that you are creating, web.tar.gz, and then the last part, the web is, or just web, is the file name or file or directory name, in this case directory, that you are tarring. Okay, so the web.tar.gz portion is the file input to the -f option and must come right after the -f. The web portion is the name of the directory you are tarring. Now run the command and then ls to see the resulting file. This file can now be transported to other locations and untarred. It's like extracting a zip file. Because the file was tarred using a relative path name, when it is extracted, it will be done in a relative fashion, extracting the structure in the current working directory. To test this, I'll make a new directory called extract in web and place the tarred file inside of it. Then I'll change directory to extract and untar the file. Then ls to see what's been created.